Okay, I didn't realize I will talk after Jan or Robert, and so no pressure there. So I introduce myself a bit more because I'm not as famous as them. So I'm Guillaume Delory. I've been working for IBM for the last 9 years now, and I'm here to talk about IBM Workflow Manager. So first, before starting, I'd like to thank Microsoft for giving me a spot today. I'm really happy to present what we've been doing for the last 7 years. And I'm here because IBM Workflow Manager basically is product we built around the DITA-OTDay. So here we are not going to really talk DITA-OTDay customizations, plugins, all this, but more we build the pipeline around the DITA-OTDay. So there won't be really any code or anything of the DITA-OTDay, but more what we build around it. So this is kind of the highlights of the presentation today. I'll go through 3 sections: why we started this 7 years ago more, then how we did it. You can imagine it didn't happen overnight. It took us a few years to really get where we wanted to be at the beginning. And the last section will be, last year we kind of finished what we wanted to achieve, so now what's next? And at the end I will give a demo, that's kind of the purpose. I'll show the tool. And there will be questions. If I don't have time to answer questions, please find me. I'm always happy to share about what I've done. So I'm here. I'm also here tomorrow and after tomorrow at the DITA Europe. So find me. I'm happy to answer any questions. So first, why we started this 9 years ago. When I joined the team, basically the situation we had, and by the way, I joined the team, I was working with Robert, which is kind of why I'm here today. We had a really local setup where people were installing a custom tool. It wasn't the DITA-OTDay at the time. It was custom tool, really reusing a lot of the DITA-OTDay code, but it wasn't the DITA-OTDay. And of course, it was local. So we had about 800 users at the time, so everyone had to update every time we were releasing a new version. It was really hard for us to maintain our tools for all our community. So the goal was, we thought we should move, not really cloud at the time, it was 9 years ago, we just thought remote. So we started this journey, didn't start timer, so I hope it won't be over. So yeah, the goal was not really to go cloud yet, but it was really to go remote, so we could push updates in a few minutes, like everyone will enjoy our updates, use our updates right away. So the first phase of this journey, which lasted 7 years, was just move this the DITA-OTDay remote. And as I said, it wasn't the DITA-OTDay at the time, but we used the opportunity to also switch to the DITA-OTDay and not the custom tool. And we decided to run these two remotely. But in order to do this, of course, you can see the years don't really match here. It's 2016, and we started in 2014 because we had to move all our users' content in a remote repository, so we could build it remotely. So the 2 years here are, of course, we were also working on other stuff, but was also to give time to our users to move to some remote repository. We gave them 2 options, Finet or GitHub. So if you don't know Finet, because it's IBM, it's an IBM enterprise content management system. So it does a bit more than version control system, but we used it as such in this context. And GitHub, of course, you know, GitHub, it was kind of trending at the time in IBM, probably earlier for the rest of the world, but this is when everyone kind of started to use GitHub, so we wanted to support it. And so when we had all the DITA files from IBM in remote repositories, we could actually run the DITA-OTDay remotely. And for this, we chose Jenkins, which might sound a bit outdated now, but is great as running lots of distributed processes. So we used Jenkins instead of building software, as we were building documentation. And also for us, it gave us the opportunity to really customize the queue management system. You can override the queue in Jenkins with the plugin, and since we had 800 users and not all of them are using our services at the same level, we had some users we wanted to kind of delay because they are building thousands of transforms every day. So this is the important points for us. That's why we went to Jenkins. And as I said at the time, we didn't think cloud yet. So the nodes of Jenkins were actually not in the cloud. It was really physical AIX servers we had in our basement in the US. Most of my team was in the US at the time. I didn't say, but I'm working in Warsaw and Slovakia, Central Europe. But the servers were in the US. So when we had this, we kind of achieved what we really wanted. The short-term goals we wanted were just be remote, so we could push updates of the DITA-OTDay really easily, and everyone could use them right away without updating anything. So we were kind of happy, but the issue I thought we had, and I'm using I because you will see this started as a bit as a side project for me. So pardon me if I'm saying hi too much, but it's that Jenkins is great, but it's not really user-friendly for non-IT, non-technical persons. And most of our community, the writers, they are not necessarily technical persons. They are also much writing, but Jenkins might have been a bit complicated. And also we gave them more options, of course, to start those transforms of the DITA-OTDay. We gave them a command line. They also from Finet, they could have some nice UI to start, but still it was not that easy. So that's why I thought we should start something to go to the next step and give them a really simple web application, basically, where they would click run, and they would run the DITA-OTDay without really knowing that it's the DITA-OTDay or understanding the options, the flags, and all those. So that's how I started this the IBM Workflow Manager, which is basically a web application, a cloud application, which is a layer on top of Jenkins, which is a layer on top of the DITA-OTDay, so it's completely transparent for users. So when I started that, I had kind of two set of goals in mind, because I had to convince my managers that it was a good idea, since it was more a side project at first. So the short-term goals was really kind of overcome the limitations of Jenkins, which was, it's a bit complicated. And also, if you don't want to deal with Jenkins, you had to install still the command line tool to start transforms. So the goal was to lower the learning curve and remove the setup. Like, everyone could contribute easily. You just had to open the link, and you had everything set up already. You didn't have to install it too. And also the other limitation from Jenkins was that it's really hard to schedule processes. So you'll tell me if you know Jenkins, it's meant for that. Yes, but when you share one job with 800 users, and each user is bringing their own property file, it gets really hard to automate their own transform just at the specific time. So we couldn't really do it easily. So Workflow Manager came also as more than just a layer on top of Jenkins, but also an orchestrator to orchestrate all the builds and schedule them. But what I really wanted to do was more the long-term vision I had, and I thought it would take some time, but was to bring the DevOps concepts to the technical documentation world or field, at least in IBM. And I wanted to kind of use it, what I was using every day as a developer for the technical documentation, which I know lots of other companies have it as well, I'm sure, but we didn't have this in IBM. So basically, as a software developer, you update your code, it gets built, it gets tested and deployed, and you're done. And I kind of wanted the same. So basically, the ultimate goal would be we will hide completely the process from writers, they will update their data file, and a few minutes later it will be live, but also test it, bring a bit more value on it. And for the technology stack, just for developers in the room, this was 7 years ago. I really wanted to, I knew we would eventually all move to the cloud, the IBM cloud at the time. So I really wanted this application to be in the cloud right away. So we went with JavaScript at the time, now we are TypeScript, but on Node.js running in Kubernetes. And since then we switched to OpenShift since we had a few changes, but this was kind of the technology stack. That brings me to phase 3. Now that at this time, so in 2019, Workflow Manager worked great, people were happy. It was much easier to use, there was nothing to install for them, but we were missing two things. One, for the team, we were not really in the cloud, and in 2019 it was becoming urgent to move to the cloud, because as I said, the DITA-OTDay was running on AIX servers. So this is the year we decided to move the DITA-OTDay to containers, so it could run in IBM Cloud. And also we are using still today Antenna House. So we moved both in container, and the transforms were happening in IBM Cloud. And at this time, for the team, we were already fully cloud. Workflow Manager was in the cloud, so the UI was in the cloud. And we moved the Jenkins server and all the nodes as a containers in the cloud. So we had really no dependencies, no physical dependencies anymore. And the other thing we were missing, not for the team now, but for our community, is that they still need to install something. And this something was a DITA editor. To edit DITA, we are using Oxygen. I'm happy we are. It would be awkward if it wasn't Oxygen today. No, but it's a great editor. So we still had an installer for them to install kind of customized version of Oxygen or desktop, but it needed some install. And it's great for writers because Oxygen is very good when you already know data, but for casual contributors, it might get a bit hard. So we wanted to give our users a way to just click, edit this topic, and to have a web version, web editor, so they could do their quick modification, and this would get published, and without having to install anything and not too much about data. So this is the year we created edit links. Maybe I have the year a bit wrong, but because actually Robert worked on the plugin of the DITA-OT to do this, so we have a DITA-OT plugin creating the links, and then it opens Oxygen Web Author in the browser. So this year we also had no installer anymore for our users. If they don't want to, of course, they can still install the desktop version of Oxygen if they want to. And that brings me to the phase 4, where I just lied a bit. I said they could edit online and it would get published. I wasn't really sure at the time because at this time we didn't really have all the algorithm to know that something got pushed to GitHub or find it, and we should build it. So that's the year I wrote an algorithm which kind of tracks everything in IBM and receives the hooks from GitHub and from Finet, which supports something similar, and knows what to build when a topic or a map is edited in GitHub or Finet. So I won't go into details, but I'm happy to answer questions later. But basically, when a topic is updated in GitHub or Finet, we kind of analyze the whole system and we know exactly which maps is using it and where these DAOs maps, usually it's more than one, where they are getting published. So we can run all the correct tool chains, pipelines, and make sure it's live in few seconds at best, few minutes most of the time. And this is the last slide, it's getting a bit long. But basically at this time, we had what I wanted when I started Workflow Manager. We had DevOps for technical documentation. Basically, when something got edited, a few minutes later, same as the software, it would get live and it would be published. And so we thought now it could be time to actually integrate more tools and bring more values now that we build the core product where everything is automated. So we had integrated more systems. The first one was Slack because now that's great, everything was automated, but now our users were never going to our product. So basically Workflow Manager, no one was ever opening it anymore since everything was happening automatically. So we gave them a way to get notified when something was broken because that happens. You can still make mistakes in your data. So they would get just notification when the pipeline didn't work. And as I said before, also, I kind of wanted the same as the DevOps for software, which was testing. So for documentation, on top of having your build not failing, which is already a good start, we wanted to bring a bit more value on the build. And so we added accessibility checks. So we run some accessibility checker and generate reports, which are also available in the UI. So it's not like only CSV, they can have search, they can go straight to the topic to edit the accessibility violations if there are any. So we bought this. We also had trademark checks, like some checks which happens after the transform. Also all automatically in your pipeline. And the last one, I'll skip box, it's pretty obvious and we don't have so much time. The last one was probably the biggest of all the integration we did. We thought now that we have a product which is able to track when things are edited, when the English files are edited, why not use all this to automate also translation, since now we know it's edited and we actually build already and publish. So we created the translation application. It's actually a different application, also running in the cloud, but working really closely with Workflow Manager to send English topics for translation as soon as they are getting edited. And when the translation comes back, we can publish in the correct location because also we know where to publish. So with automated translation, both machine translation and human translation, which was a really painful process at the time in IBM where we had actually users were really zipping files, sending them to translators and getting them back months later sometimes. So we automated all this. And of course, for human translation, up to the point it reaches a human translator and he has to translate. But then, as soon as the work is done, it was just validated and it was coming back and published. So we are really happy with that. We are auto-translating in 12 languages, I think, with machine translation. Human translation, of course, involves cost, so it's a bit different process, but we also support it. And the last thing, so that was last year. Basically, when translation was done, we were like, so what's next? Because now we already did what we wanted. We have automated everything. So we thought the last thing we are kind of missing is that this is a nice tool, but you will see a demo in 1 minute, I hope. You still need to learn how to use the tool, configure your pipelines. It might get a bit complicated still. So we created an onboarding wizard where in 2 clicks you have all your product set up. That means creating the Git repository with all DITA topics in it. So we pre-generate DITA topics based on sections users are going to choose in the wizard. I'll try to demo that. And it creates also all the Workflow Manager pipeline to build, publish, test accessibility and all this. And of course the live version in IBM documentation. So IBM documentation is our main platform for technical documentation. If you go to ibm.com/docs, this is where it lives. I'll try to demo quickly. Didn't start my timer, so I hope I'm on time. Let me put my, actually let me duplicate my screen quickly, it will be easier. Okay, you should see now my screen, yes. Okay, so this is Workflow Manager. It looks like this. You have a section on the left where you can actually configure your transforms. I will explain a little bit later. I'll start the demo by kind of the normal flow of casual contributors or also writers if they use Oxygen. But basically, so this is IBM documentation, and this is a test documentation. And Robert, I'm sure you can recognize Mike's sample from 25 years ago. So maybe more. So we added those editings, and you can see if I click this, it takes me to Oxygen Web Author. So for casual contributors, it's still much easier than installing Oxygen Desktop. They can just make their change. So here the content lives in GitHub. You don't see it, you don't know where, and also you don't know how the content is structured, how deep is the topic. You don't need to care about all this. So here I'm just going to say, Guillaume was here, and all I have to do is just, well, you still know it's Git from this icon, but I'm going to commit. And that's all you have to do as a casual contributor now. So if I go back to my Workflow Manager product, hopefully I didn't get locked out. You can see that it's starting automatically this specific pipeline. So this, I won't go into details, but pipeline is basically which transform to run using the DITA-OT and where to publish and what extra steps to do. I think we are not too late, so I can show you quickly. Here is basically what is the pipeline configuration. So you can add steps. So you will add run transforms, which is basically calling the DITA-OT, and then run accessibility, post Slack messages, and more things. So I won't go into details too much, but here you set up all your steps really easily and graphically. And here you can run the pipeline manually, but if you select file change, which is the default, as soon as the English is changing in GitHub or Finet, it will start automatically anyway. And just since we are at the DITA-OT conference, I'll just explain a bit the mapping between all this and how the DITA-OT is called. So here we have this transform section page, and here basically you can create what we call transforms, which is basically how to call the DITA-OT. And here you have all the graphical options of the DITA-OT. And if it's not enough, we also allow just passing flags to the DITA-OT for really advanced users. But most of the things are already exposed here, so it's kind of easy for them to configure. As you can see, it's still not that easy, so which is why we created the wizard. And which brings me to the wizard. I have it here. Just refresh, okay. So this is basically, imagine you never published any technical documentation, you want to get started, you would just come here, click next, just give a name. So I'm going to say DITA-OTDay. I'll just use any name. So, and I can add fellow contributors if I need to. Here, doesn't matter. And this is what I was telling you. Here you have the main level 1 heading, we call it main section of the documentation. You can change the order, you can rename them, you can add custom topic at the end. Imagine that this is the data map and it's mapping to topics or data maps below. So this is very easy for people not the data to kind of configure the main sections they would want, and then they just click complete. And here what's going to happen, it's creating the Git repository, populating with the data, and then it will create the Workflow Manager product and all the configurations so it gets published automatically. So this will take, this is already all done, but then the publish it takes 2 minutes, so I'm not really going to wait. Just I can show you if I duplicate this. Oops, this, cannot type. So this is what just got created and it's already publishing. Also I wanted to show you, and I'll be done, just the DITA, since we are at DITA conference, which was created here. So this is kind of what gets auto-populated from what the user selected in the wizard. I'm not showing you the translation because it would take some time, but here if I was going, I can just show you. This probably my sentence is not here yet, but if I was going to French, for instance, this is the machine translation version, so we auto-translate in 12 languages. This all happens without any extra setup for the user. It's just they create the Workflow Manager product and it gets auto-translated. I think I'm done with the demo. I didn't start the timer soon enough, so I think we're out of time, right? So maybe no questions. But I don't know if we have time for a few questions. Yeah? Okay, so is there any question? No question anyway, so I'm good. There's one.
Thank you. Yeah, hi. This is very, very impressive. Trying to understand, though, in the authoring environment, how this maintains referential integrity between conrefing content and images and stuff like that. They all have to be brought into the same sort of Git reload or be able to.
Good question.
So, yeah.
I didn't really show here, but yeah, to walk around that, I think I'll go here. A bit like actually, I think Roger was just explaining, it's a bit different mechanism, but we have something similar where we can actually hook extra Git repositories. So when they share content, we allow them to also pull more Git repositories, and they can actually map them in the specific subfolder if they want to, here or in the root folder. But yeah, that's how you kind of bring more content in your environment, in your working directory when it builds. So.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for listening to me. And if you want to talk more details, I'll be here and also tomorrow and after tomorrow. Thank you very much.